Okay, we are now live.
All righty. Okay, well, we'll call our meeting to order for May 1st. Brian, would you start with roll call?
We are now live. Yes, Commissioner Short,
I am here.
Commissioner Nye, Commissioner Nye,
Yep, here. Can you hear me?
Commissioner Myers,
Present.
Commissioner Young,
I'm here.
Commissioner Randall,
Here.
Chair Lerman.
Here.
Okay, and Commissioner Hamilton is absent and excused.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Have we posted the meeting notice in all
Yes.
appropriate locations?
Yes.
Right. Thank you very much. And starting off, like to have an introduction. Our newest member, also an alder, Charles Myers. Charles, welcome, and please feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Charles Myers. I am the alder representing District 5, which of course includes the airport. I have previously served as the chair of Middleton's Public Works Committee and a member of the Landmarks Commission and Conservancy Lands Committee before coming to City Council. I have two wonderful kids, my wife and a dog, who you may hear during this meeting in the background if I'm not on mute. So I look forward to working with all of you over my term.
Thank you very much. And it is an honor to have you here. Really appreciate that. Next, we have a public comment, which is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. And we'll look around here. If you would like to speak, raise your hand. If you can't raise your hand, just go ahead and recognize yourself.
I'm not seeing any virtual hands raised at the moment.
All right. We'll give another shot here. Oh, okay. I do see a hand up, and I thought I saw a camera on. And is it Jeff Gallagher?
Yes.
Go ahead and let us know where you, for the record, let us know where you live.
Where I live?
Mhm.
I live in Fitchburg, Wisconsin, in 2713 Cordley Street.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just I think I raised my hand by accident, but
Oh, we thought you wanted to speak for public comment.
no, I'm good. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, it's nice to meet you. Thank you for attending. All right. Anybody else? Okay, very good. And we'll close public comment section. Moving on to approval of the minutes. I've reviewed the minutes. I accept them as they are. Commissioners, do you have any other additions or notations for Brian? All righty, great. And we'll accept the minutes as they are published. Chair report. Yeah, just a couple some public service things I have here mentioned of one of the aviators at the airport. His name's Jeff Russell. He was honored by AOPA, which is the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, probably the one of the largest organizations in the U.S. that represents general aviation aircraft owners and pilots for the work he did. And what I want to mention about this, which is unique, is through his work, I identified a very small airport up in northern Wisconsin that was more or less in an abandoned state, and through volunteer efforts, working with local aviators in the community, rehabilitated this airport and turned it into a working airport. Just a nice example of what people do in the general aviation industry. On a related note, the Capital Flight actually commissioned and had an airplane built to acknowledge the organization that did this work. The recreational aircraft, I think they're called RAF. What's the F stand for? I don't know.
Foundation,
Foundation. Thank you.
National Aircraft Foundation.
Thank you. So, and that airplane is seen in and around and flying around the Middleton area. So that's a couple of other things, just some recent observations going on out at the airport. The Maury Aviation Company, now has a training rental fleet of 9 aircraft, and Capital Flight has a fleet of 5 aircraft in operation, carrying out training and rental activity. The local EA chapter just awarded another scholarship for $12,000 to a local 16-year-old that will be also engaged in primary flight training out at the airport. I attended the Bureau of Aeronautics conference this month, hosted up in Stevens Point, and the conference was comprehensive and covered anything and everything you can imagine at a technical level that involves airport funding, airport regulations, airport getting your grants, your paperwork. It was insightful for me simply because I guess what it really demonstrated was, well, for those of you who are pilots, you appreciate and understand checklists, and checklists aren't negotiable. And that was very much the same process that I observed at this conference in the way they treated what is required of airports, public use airports that are grant recipients, when we apply for funding and go through the process that is asked of us. It's either we do it right or we do it wrong. And I would say that was my biggest takeaway. Got to meet a lot of folks, made some excellent connections. Couple that are quite noteworthy. Former students and former instructors out at the airport are now working in the business of aviation and the Bureau of Aeronautics at engineering and project management level. So it just shows you that and over time, going back more than 15 years, the impact that a local airport has in terms of starting people's career that I would consider young, but they probably don't consider themselves young anymore, but they were at the time, and now they're working in the profession of aviation, and they both are pilots, but they're not flying. I mean, they might fly privately, but they're not flying, for their jobs. What they're doing for their jobs is they're actual engineers and they're project managers at the Bureau of Aeronautics level. So I think that demonstrates a nice local impact of things. So that was my take on it. And other things that were just that we were reminded of at the conference was the importance of master plans, and that illustrated really what actually a good job our airport has done in terms of having a master plan and having one in place, and how other airports out there that aren't up to the level that we're at are striving to get to that level, and how that really impacts their ability to work with the BOA and FAA when it comes to getting major projects lined up and built out into the future. So a lot of credit goes to all the of our predecessors who've put time and effort into these types of projects for the city of Middleton and the airport. Lots and lots of technical things, emphasizing the importance of managing and protecting our airspace and the spaces around the airport. And again, working with the Bureau of Aeronautics in looking down the road and trying to kind of future-proof things in terms of the development of projects and thinking long range as possible. That was another takeaway. And when they say long range, they like to look out to 2030, 2035. They really like to go out as far as possible. Or maybe learning experience for me was, I'm looking at the next 5 years. They're looking at the next 30 years. So I think I've taken up enough of your time on that, but I think it kind of illustrated what I experienced. So on to the manager's report.
There we go. Excellent. Can you hear me now? Very good. And yeah, I would echo what David said. I've been to many of these seminars, and I was there at this one as well. There's a great deal of detail that has to be done, and the checklists, everything has to be accomplished in proper order. And I agree. I think our airport is ahead of the game when it comes to that. So we'll go back. We've got 2 months of work, so our reports here from February 28th through March 29th. There was one noise or low-flying airport reported. From March 29th through April 28th, there were 7 noise or low-flying aircraft reported. Now, everyone who wished to be contacted was contacted on the callback. And from looking at things, there were no obvious violations that I could come up with. It seems like people are still, for the most part, following the noise abatement procedure. We did have to talk to the flight school at Wisconsin Aviation, and their manager said that he would get his quote unquote beating stick out and talk to his students and his instructors to make sure they were following the noise abatement procedure. We have a good working relationship across the Lake Mendota with those people. No aircraft accidents or incidents on the field. We were awaiting the snow, but it didn't come to any extent. So now we're definitely into mowing season. We can just kind of look at, we were continuing to do what we always do with the Maury Conference Room. We've had the Chapter 93 VMC Club both months. That's a safety seminar. We've done Experimental Aircraft Association meeting and safety seminars, Girl Scout meetings, Garden Club both months, more safety seminars, and really supporting girls in aviation with the free use of our simulator with volunteer instructors, as well as we'll be, let's see, there was something else in there. But in any event, we're continuing to support both safety and youth aviation. We're going to be coming up on some, oops, there we go. I have too many pieces of paper in front of me. Excuse me. Another safety seminar, May 22nd, I'll be presenting that. And then May 24th, Wings to Fly. This will be, again, underrepresented populations out getting rides very similar to the Young Eagles program, but yet distinct in that these programs were very much one-on-one with the students or the young people, and they're getting to ride up front and some hands-on on the aircraft. So that concludes my reports. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, I see a couple hands up. Let's see here in order on my screen. Charles, please.
David actually had his hand raised before me.
Oh, did he? Okay, I was looking down. David, go ahead.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Rich, I was just curious, when we get when you give your report every month and we talk about people making noise complaints or any other complaints, I'm curious of two things. Is there any consistency in terms of who is making the complaint, number one? And number two, is there any particular reaction after there's follow-up reaction from the complainants when there's your follow-up?
David, typically we will see repeated complaints from one individual. Not always with that. I think people do want to have some kind of response, and they're with a repeat reporter. I think there was a meeting with that person explaining that we are following the noise abatement procedure and it's not likely to change anytime soon. And that seemed to have satisfied that individual, at least to a certain extent. Otherwise, I will call back. Sometimes it is always met with, they're happy that I called back. They aren't always happy with the result. There was one individual that actually left a rather nasty message on our answering machine. I opted not to call them back. Actually, it was so nasty that we had the authorities speak with that individual, and it was clarified that what was stated was not really what it sounded like. Let's leave it at that. So I haven't heard from that gentleman since either. So for the most part, everyone is polite. They appreciate the being a callback if they wanted. A lot of people just want to make sure that this is actually being reported and recorded, which of course it certainly is.
Great, thank you.
Charles. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you, Rich and Dave, for your reports, and Dave for recognizing me. I wanted to offer a comment on the report and outward facing communications from the airport. Are we releasing press releases or working with the City of Middleton's communications office to put out press releases when an aviator who's active at the airport is honored, or one of the many charitable activities described in the report is happening? I think it would be beneficial to really make sure that we're better communicating that out to the extent that it's possible and feasible.
Well, I can answer that to a certain extent that, yes, we are not as good as we should be at getting that word out. Often all that happens is it's posted on our aviator websites and social media, and it will be written up in an aviation magazine, but it will not hit the general public. So that's something that we could be more proactive with. As for the other events, such as a pancake breakfast, yeah, we do put advertisements out. I don't really put the press releases out that the Girl Scouts are meeting there, and or the Boy Scout first aid classes are there, or any of that. That's something that I really should look into, because I do believe that would be good for public relations, and people want to know what's going on out there.
Yep, and we can, as there are events or activities or awards that are, deemed important for the community to know about, we're happy to help facilitate that communication out. So, be it commission members, if you hear something, or Rich, in the course of your business, if you find that there's something that needs to go out as a press release, by all means, contact me and let me know, and we'll work on that.
I will, Brian. Thank you. And I do have to give the Middleton Times Tribune a bit of credit. They've covered when they've an awful lot of events, both at Capital Flight and at Maury Airplane Company, including my Wright brothers, which I had to ask this woman who she was and what she or where she was from, and I was pleasantly surprised that the Cap Times, or not Cap Times, the Times Tribune had sent her out. So that was nice.
Thank you for that question, Charles. Yeah, I think it's probably incumbent on any one of us to get information to us and then send a note over to the Times Tribune editor and to Brent. Could funnel that all to you, Brian. You would be the filter on it. Would that be fair?
Yep, I can help facilitate that.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions for Rich concerning his report? I have a couple follow-up things. I think, Brian, we can talk about that here. Our physical site visit and Mr. Wagner's questions, because it
Yeah,
falls
it's
within
still
that.
part of your chair's report. Yep.
Okay, great. Larry Wagner, he does the a lot of the hay work out on the field. He's approached Commissioner Randall, he's approached Rich, he's approached me on a few occasions, and Brian. Basically, observations that he sees in and around the property. It could be drainage, it could be erosion, it could be just various things that are kind of physical to the property. And Brian and I went out on a tour to specifically look at a lot of these things. Greg took us out on that. I would say in summary, I appreciate what Mr. Wagner, first of all, is pointing out to us. He's clearly concerned and involved with what he does out there and wants to really maximize the amount of hay that he can produce in and around the airport. Because the airport is built on a wetland, there are vast areas out there where the water simply doesn't drain, and you can't operate heavy equipment on top of it for harvesting the hay until it dries up. And there's other areas out and around the airport where, it is a watershed that flows through it, where there's a lot of vegetation that grows up aggressively that may potentially be, interfering with the efficiency of drainage. So I think all of these things combined, I would say the take on it is, well, it's 25 years old now. We do have a request in with our funding, part of our grant assurances, to do a drainage study out at the airport. I am and by no means qualified to talk about what proper drainage is or isn't. But I think it would be fair to say that, and Brian would probably agree, this is not a new topic, and it probably does need to be looked at simply because of age and what's going on out there. Is it a problem? I can't say. From Mr. Wagner's perspective, I understand where he's at. And I don't have an answer for him other than we're trying, and I can see that we're trying, but we're limited in what we can do. And Brian will be having a conversation with him and on that, or Rich.
Yeah, and that's in part one of the reasons for some of our requests in the most recent BOA petition process was to make some of those activities, such as the drainage study and some of the equipment, in particular, an attachment, kind of an arm extension attachment to one of our existing pieces of equipment that would help, the staff at the airport manage some of that. I don't want to call it floral material, but that type of material that does grow in the creek bed to help clean some of that out safely. But then the full-blown drainage study, once we are able to receive approval from the DOA to start that and do that project, would give us that more longer-term view of, what are the things that we need to plan for over the next couple of years to improve the drainage of the property and look at how we manage some of those lower lying areas on the property going forward. So that, there's not going to be any immediate answers until we get through the process of a drainage study, but I think that study will be helpful when we make some capital decisions, in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and so I think how do we, help Mr. Wagner out? I think we just have to leave it the way it is. There are some things out there that there's a retention pond. That retention pond, as I understand, predates even when when the airport was private and put in by the Morty family in 1942. So there are probably things out there that will never change because it is a wetland. And yeah. See, if anybody has any other input, that you'd like during this discussion to pass on to Brian, please speak up so we can, I think the more information we have, the more helpful it is. More observations. Okay. Let's see.
Chairman,
what else? Yeah.
Commissioner Randall has her hand up.
Oh, go ahead. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, included in, the whole process of looking at all of this and funding would be also consideration for ongoing maintenance. Obviously, vegetation likes to grow back. So, and as you're looking at drainage and looking at clearing and things like that for all purposes that serve, the airport or Larry or, the grounds around it, and drainage for the Pheasant Branch Creek as well. I'm very aware of the flooding that occurred in 2018, and there's the likelihood of something like that occurring again with our weather pattern changes. So it's useful to think of ongoing maintenance and a great way to do that. So I would just make a note of that. Would be nice to add in the process.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Greg pointed out to us, like one area where you could see there's a culvert, but there really isn't an identifiable, say, stream bed flowing into another main stream bed. Maybe it's supposed to be that way. Maybe it's not. We don't know, right? It's those types of things. I think as far as ongoing maintenance goes, we do actually have a request in our most recent ask for a piece of equipment that would go on the front end of the large Caterpillar machine out there, and it would be self-powered with an arm on it, and it would be able to kind of articulate down and try to get closer to some of the banks and things like that. So yeah, we're going to try. But when I looked at it to say, okay, how do you really fix some of these low-lying areas? It's pretty obvious it's going to take people with specific skills and equipment.
Right. And I was thinking in particular with ongoing maintenance, almost like a time schedule that works with the seasons, because obviously there's time for burning, there's time for clearing with the heavy equipment, with the ground harder in the winter. I mean, so it's kind of clear like what months some of the maintenance could occur in, based on weather and nature.
Sure. Well, from that standpoint, I guess we would ask Rich if you could integrate into your manager's report, call it an outline, and it could just be part of a boilerplate, part of a template. But you may do it in your head, and I know that when we were just talking with Greg yesterday, it's pretty clear that he has a very clear idea when to do things and not do things. Like I observed a pair of nesting ducks in an area, and he's like, well, we're not going to touch that area. So so maybe if we just document a little bit more of that for the commission, and just, like I said, put it right into your form, and we'll it'll be a reminder to all of us to keep it as an ongoing discussion. The other note I had, part of the question for manager's report that was brought up to my attention was, have we done any hangar inspections recently, or are they planned for this year?
No, the hangar inspections are planned for this year. We need to get a letter to all the hangar owners. They received the notification that that would occur with the renewals of their for the land lease. So I don't know that we're waiting on anything particularly, other than it's a little better to do this when the temperature's reasonable as opposed to in the middle of the winter. So typically we do it in the late spring or early summer. So we'll be looking ahead, giving everyone probably a month's notice, and then asking the city probably to do the mailing, although we could do it as well and then just bill the city, whatever works out. It's been a couple of years since we did one. It's high time we do another.
Sure. Yes, work that out with Brian. Thank
Okay.
you.
Very good.
And lastly, this year there will be no Rock the Ramp event, but I still anticipate, as usual, aircraft will be using our airport as a staging area. So anything you can think of, Rich, from an FBO operational standpoint, that comes to mind for hosting or being as open or friendly as possible, please do so, and don't hesitate to reach out to any resources or things that you would have in mind.
Absolutely, David. And we do have the pancake breakfast shortly before the beginning of Oshkosh. So that will be a big open house, really, for the airport and the city and residents. So that'll be good. And there'll undoubtedly be aircraft that will fly in. I suspect there's still going to be something when the friends come in, and there'll be a couple informal events most likely, but we'll see how that all works out.
Sure, great. Commissioner Randall, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I put my hand up when your head was down. Not a good move.
Yeah, I'm looking down most of the time at my notes. Sorry.
No, it would actually had to do on the last thing, just for my own edification, on when our hangar leases renewed, just in general.
Renewed on a 5-year period.
In fiscal year is ending in June, kind of thing, or is it?
They're renewed at the end of December for the start of January the next year. So that 5-year period going forward.
And does it change for each one, or is it that all a group at one time?
I'd have to go back and look at the list to see exactly, but it's my understanding it's kind of a bulk, all renewed in a 5-year period.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I just wanted to know.
Well, I don't have any more comments or questions for this portion of reporting. Anybody else have any other questions for Rich or general things in this? Rich, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, something that I am remiss in not reporting was the Chapter 93's first Young Eagle Rally of the year was last weekend, and I believe they flew, and you flew, something along the lines of, was it 29 children?
Yeah, about 30, 29, 30.
About 30. Okay, well, my hat's off to everyone, all the volunteers and the chapter.
I did 9 of them, so. Yeah, well, thank you. Okay, well, on to discussion and action items. First item is, and that is why Mr. Gallagher is here. Review consideration and potential action on the EAA Chapter 93 Pancake Breakfast event. So what you have before the commission is, this has already gone through a license and ordinance, so for all practical purposes, it is now met city approval, will go on to common council for final vote. What we have requested as part of the process, I realize it adds one more layer, but large events like this, we just want it to come past the commission for review and comment or feedback. So commissioners, if do you have any comment or feedback for Mr. Gallagher? Up, Charles, go ahead.
First, thank you for joining us. I just had one question about the special event permit. It looks like it was initially scheduled for the 6th, and then the date was changed to the 13th. Did you, when you changed that date on the permit, mean to also change Saturday, July 5th to Saturday, July 12th and down the line? Because those dates on the permit uh, remain the old dates.
Yes, we did. We moved everything out a week, due to the fact that it was going to coincide with 4th of July, and a lot of our chapter volunteers couldn't come. I had spoken to Laura, I believe it's Laura Ports, was giving me, she and I were in contact, and I think if if I remember right, the email was that with it being pushed out, she was just gonna kind of blanket everything a week later. So if it's on the permit as the 5th, it should be the 12th. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the application. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, I believe I don't have the permit with me, the copy that I have, but I believe that it was she just changed everything in a blanket, adding a week.
Yeah, the permit has the correct date on it.
Yep.
The application just has a few lines, and I just wanted to make sure that that was a clerical error.
Yep, it was.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
Commissioner Randall.
Yes, I just want to actually thank Jeff for not only for being on the call and like showing all of this, but really for taking on the pancake breakfast. It's an amazing thing to put on, and More Airplane Company has been hosting it for years, and Jeff has stepped up, and I've been at some of the organizational meetings, and the preparation is really fantastic and professional. So Jeff, thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And Rich, thank you to you too.
Anybody else have any other feedback? I'm satisfied with what I've seen. And the EA chapter has been consistent in operating this event, perfect, with lots of volunteer effort, and it's always been well organized, and a great community event. Of course, a lot of thanks goes to Maury Inc. because the main hangar is simply cleared out, and all operations are shut down to make this happen. So I don't have any other input or comments. I then at this point would like to make a motion that we approve the EAA Chapter 93 Pancake Breakfast event as request.
I
David
think we're all
Schwartz.
trying the second.
Oh, okay. I saw a hand go up. Who seconded there? Was Schwartz or was it Myers?
I
It
had
was,
Schwartz
it
first.
was not me. The hand you saw go up, I'm sitting on a porch and I waved at someone coming up to the door. So
Oh, okay. Well then, we have a second from
Second.
our Alder Myers. All those in favor of approving the EAA Chapter 93 Pancake event, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Brian, can I step just backwards on the agenda? Because Matt Fleming is here, and I asked that you simply post the information from the Secretary of Transportation, not as a an action item, but I guess it's posted. And do we just leave it at that for now?
Yep, it's for information only for the commission. Again, it's a general letter sent out from the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Transportation regarding some federal guidance on the various issues. As we are a recipient of federal FAA funding, we were a recipient of the letter, and so I just put a copy of it in the packet materials, so all of you see it since we saw it.
Yep. Okay. All right. Then we will move on to item number 2, review, consideration, and potential action on Chapter 2.18 of the Airport Commission Ordinance, including membership, background, and or expertise. And in the packet is a draft that was put together. Brian will bring that up for everybody to see. I've had a chance to review it, but I would like to certainly hear from the commission for thoughts and ideas and discussion before I certainly chime in. And I would certainly, I'll provide, what I will do is I'll provide some background on this. This came up a while ago now, probably going back to probably 2023. And I brought this up because it seemed at the time, and I do believe to this day that there needs to be some representation that's reflected in the ordinance that the Airport Commission should have persons on it specific within aviation knowledge base or background as represented on many of the other committees within the city, and can pretty much start from the list from A to Z, and you'll see that it's pretty common throughout the ordinance. So that's what's brought us where we are tonight. So commissioners, I would like your feedback and input on the language of the ordinance. And this is just an amendment to, okay, Commissioner Randall.
Yeah, I was looking at like the very first part of the sentence, like where it says, unless after reasonable efforts to find a qualified person. Does qualified in that, does the verbiage represent meaning as a city resident or non-resident, or are you referring to some specialized knowledge, or both?
Well, primarily as to the specialized knowledge. I suppose it can be construed to also reflect residents, because we have a separate general requirement that there be that people on committees or commissions are residents, but we have an exception in that same provision for when you want somebody with expertise. That's why that additional city resident or non-resident is there, just as a reminder that because there's the expertise requirement, that it can be either. So really it's sort of a hierarchy. We would seek out a non-resident for the expertise before we would accept a resident without expertise.
Okay, because I would just imagine the situation perhaps where you have 5 citizens that have no background and wanted to make sure that the verbiage
really there it's because it's either as a resident. I think it's implicitly the real qualification that is looking at is the expertise, not directly the residence part. Right.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Yep. And then just so you know,
I'm sorry, Matt. Go ahead. Nope.
Well, I was just going to say, I tweaked the language a bit from the last version you saw based on just kind of review of your last discussion about it. And so the language that I have in there, generally available from ordinary human experience, is kind of language that is taken from case law and so forth for like what qualifies somebody as an expert witness, or which is in case law is a pretty broad. It's basically any sort of knowledge outside of human experience. I know there was some discomfort about the use of the word expert, which in other contexts could be something very specific. And so, when I initially used it, I was thinking of more broad sense that is used in case law. So I just used the sort of case law description of expert that I had anticipated, or that I was thinking of when I had used that other language. And then, kept in the language there that just as a further descriptor that that experience can even just be being a recreational pilot. I think that qualifies as experience that is with aviation that is, outside that which is generally available from ordinary human experience. So that's just the genesis of that language. And
Yeah, so what I did, Matt, is I was looking at the plan commission, the way that ordinance is drafted, and what I liked about it, it had these kind of broke it down into these points A, B, C, D, and using the language that you put out there, what I sort of did is I kind of went this route. So like point A, underneath section 1, the airport commission shall consist of 7 members as follows. And then point A, 2 members shall be alderpersons, period. B, 1 member, either as a city resident or non-resident, must have specialized knowledge, skill, expertise, training, or education in aviation as a pilot or private professional, a pilot for professional or private purposes or in the field of aviation. So the term recreation is really shouldn't be in any of the language. You either fly professionally or you fly privately. That's it. What you do on your private time is up to you. And then C would be 3 member. Now, this just because I'm saying this is where I want it to be open for discussion and input. C would be 3 members unless after reasonable efforts to find a qualified person, either as a city resident or non-resident, have failed, shall have specialized knowledge, skill, expertise, training, or education. And that's just word for word from what Matt already put up there, et cetera, et cetera. And also taking the word recreational out and putting private in. And D, because I think I have a pulse on the Common Council, there must be 1 member, either as a city resident or non-resident, period. Not putting any requirement in there that says aviation background knowledge or expertise. And Matt, I guess I don't want to send a message to because I don't think it would go over well to say, nope, you cannot be on this airport commission if you don't have aviation background or expertise. Now, granted, you have 2 Common Council members already. Now, what are the chances of one of them being a pilot? Pretty unusual. So pretend I don't exist. You'd have 2 council members on here.
Right.
Well,
my thoughts, and this is clearly ultimately a policy question and how we want to recommend this to the council. I mean, first, it was just my understanding that we wanted to try to have as much expertise.
yes.
And the reason why, I guess I hadn't thought of recommending or drafting this to make sure we have somebody that is not a pilot, because as you said, oftentimes, the chances you have an alder that is also a pilot is typically relatively low. But also the function of this committee, I mean, I think the council itself, in terms of issues regarding the airport that are just sort of general interest to the citizenry, I'm not sure if the council really needs a body to advise it as to those issues. It seems to me more that the council and the purpose of the Airport Commission is to provide sort of specific, specialized knowledge about the operations and needs of the airport. But I mean, you all may have different perspectives, and I'm certainly not saying that it's inconceivable that having, requiring one of the citizen members in addition to any alder be a non-expert. And then there's the other question. Dave, were you suggesting that one of the people would specifically be required to not have any expertise, or just indicating because it?
Yeah, I'm just trying to indicate that I don't want to shut the door. So I don't want, when this, say, makes it up to the Common Council, where someone looks at it and says, so you're saying you must, be aviation background to be on this commission. And what we're trying to say is yes and no. We want a certain number of people to have some of that background, specific number, let's put it to you that way. But for the rest, they can or can't. It's up to the mayor. And Charles, your hand was up. Dave, your hand was up, but now it's not up. Okay, Charles, go ahead, and then David. And is Charles muted? Yeah.
Sorry, I have a microphone that I have to tap to unmute, and I keep forgetting that I'm muting my Zoom. I apologize. So first, I wanted to say that I appreciate the really fine needle that Matt is trying to thread here. We are a city of 22,000 people. There is a very real possibility for any expert body that if we write the expertise language too rigidly, it may prove impossible to fill that expert body. So I do appreciate what Matt's done, because there's more flexibility in it than I think I anticipated looking at it. And if we were following your suggestion, David, to strike for professional or recreational purposes, just because experience as a pilot is experience as a pilot, the phrase education outside that generally available from ordinary human experience relating to aviation, that might be a little bit more flexible beyond just people who've flown. Someone could have spent entirely too much time reading through airport master plans or something like that. That's not an ordinary human experience. I think the way it's authored may actually give the flexibility you're looking for, David, for a non-expert, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah.
And I
David
think you're
Schwartz.
good
Oh,
point,
sorry.
Charles. I was just sorry to just jump right in, but I mean that's the other thing with these sort of things where you've got the mayor making an appointment, the council making a recommendation, reasonable efforts. Who is going to be the judge of these things? Well, it's going to be the mayor and the council. And there really isn't any outside ability of anybody to challenge that decision. So there is some inherent flexibility that as long as anyone can point to with a straight face to some kind of knowledge about airports. And frankly, if you've got any interest in the airport beyond just Joe Schmo off the street, you probably could arguably have something in your experience that could be pointed to say, here's you fit that description. So there's that political aspect to it that allows a bit of flexibility as well.
David Schwartz.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I appreciate all the efforts of drafting and the discussion that's been had here. I certainly agree with the elimination of a replacement of the term recreation for the reasons discussed. But with that, I I prefer Matt's language in drafting for the reasons stated by Matt, as well as comments by Charles, and then just my own experience so far in this few years that I've been on this commission. If a person is discussing the various issues that we discuss and they do not have an aviation background, this is going to be swimming in deep water without fins or a snorkel, and it just makes it very burdensome for the rest of the commission if there isn't that sort of background knowledge of some form or fashion there. So those are just my comments.
All right, thank you very much. So, anybody else? Haven't heard from, haven't picked on Jack or Lindsay, but you got nothing to say, it's okay.
Yeah, I think my only thing was just I was curious if, David mentioned a specific number that we want to make sure fill this specific quota. Is that something that we're intending to define in this statute? Because, we may have an opinion here of what that number should be. A future council may have a different opinion. Is that something that we would like to, set in writing so that we have that as a standard moving forward?
Mm-hmm.
The way it's set up, the presumption is you want all 5 members, if possible, to be experts, but but giving the flexibility and efforts to find qualified people, we know that hopefully we'll never be in a position where we've got none.
Right.
But as soon as you say there's got to be one, you may end up
Right.
So yeah, like I said, the goal is to have as many as possible, but only if, hey, we'd rather have a body there giving some input rather than leave this thing vacant, that we would have somebody that does not have that background.
Okay. That's, I think that was really my only concern was just around defining that. So yeah, I totally do understand that in terms of making sure we're not backing ourselves into a corner of not having a council if we don't fit the criteria to a T. But just wanted to make sure that we also weren't leaving ourselves open to have like a council full of people who don't fit that criteria. So that was it.
Sarah.
I think I was actually on the same line as Lindsay, just like thinking down the road. That was really helpful about, ultimately it's the mayor and then the council approving the selection process. So I was just thinking of down the road, let's say a mayor is elected that for some reason is not in favor of the airport. And is there enough guidance here that this particular commission is going to have people who have some education experience outside the ordinary human experience, some way of protecting this body, so to speak, for lack of better words.
But that's the council then, because the council approves the appointments, and if the council does not feel that reasonable efforts have been made, or that the people presented aren't qualified, then they won't grant the approval.
Clear.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, what happened in the past, and I was part of the commission at that time and leading up to it, was a different mayor removed a commission member, but that mayor put themselves on the commission, and then appointed another council member, because you have to have 2. And there was already 1 sitting council member, so that's 3. And then there was also an appointed citizen 4th that came with some, I'll just say, baggage that did not involve airport knowledge or even support. So then what we actually had was we got to a point where there was actually a majority for a short time of commission members that were not representative of the aviation background and knowledge. And one of the commissioners at that time, ironically, when we got into a discussion, raised that point and said, well, then maybe that's what the airport commission needs. So that's what kind of brought us to this point. So that's where my head is at, and that's why I kind of, even if I said, well, at least one person has to, no matter what, have an aviation background, and that's where I was kind of seeing that when I looked at like water resource management, plan commission, conservancy lands, those ordinances specifically state there's got to be a person who's could be a biologist, hydrologist, but if I'm also comfortable with Matt's language, because this is what will end up in front of a common council at some point. At some point that the mayor will have the applications in front of the mayor, and the mayor will be looking through it, and city administration and staff will remind the mayor to say, hey, of this list of people you're looking at, this is the ordinance. So if that's enough to drive it in that direction, then I'm certainly satisfied with the way it is. And that was my only reason for raising the points I did. So, okay. Matt, what do you think?
So just from the discussion, it seems to be that there's consensus that this is okay, just striking, changing recreational to private. Is that correct? Okay. So if that is the will of the commission, I guess what we'd look for is a motion to recommend approval of the ordinance with the word private swapped out for recreational, and then we'll get this on the L&O agenda and on the council.
Sure.
Brian.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Dave.
I'd move to accept the language just recited by Matt.
Okay, all right. I didn't hear from Brian. I just wanted to let him chime in before we.
Yep, no, I concur with the city attorney. That's the correct process to follow.
Okay. All right. Well, we have a motion, and we have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Schwartz, a second from Commissioner Fleming to approve the language as presented, removing the word recreational and replacing it with the word private. All those in favor of adopting, please state aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. On to item number 3, discussion and consideration of potential mission and vision for airport business development and related comprehensive plan. All righty, well, as you can see, there is a draft in the packet. And Brian, if you'll throw that up on the screen. I'd like to thank Commissioner Schwartz for helping work on this draft. And what I did in the draft was basically you'll see some yellow highlights where I just simply stated new section, and or for each section, previously A, B, C, D, and so forth. But each one of those sections are primarily rewritten and or borrowing some language from the current comprehensive plan. So I would say for all, practical purposes, what you see in front of you under the actions section really is probably a 90% redraft of what is currently out there for the city. And that's it. So this is the draft that's put together at this point. Certainly would appreciate input from the commission. Anybody has any? Charles, go ahead.
Just under action A, the new section.
Mhm.
I would move sentence 2 so that it is in front of sentence 1. Sentence 2 is the purpose and vision statement. And sentence 1 is more of an implementation follow through.
Yep. So where it's the airport has always served as the hub, that would be sentence 1. And then use the airport master plan as a guide would be sentence 2.
Correct.
Gotcha. All right. The background on section A is, the result of a couple meetings with the mayor and business interests at the airport, trying to capture the spirit of it as much as possible. Righty. Section B. Again, it's rewritten. Probably one of the biggest things that we worked on through here was trying to clarify the language of, there was a survey. The survey really didn't accurately reflect, activity numbers at the airport, because if you have 100 based aircraft out there, then how can you have, showing a higher percentage of one activity and a lower percentage of another? And aircraft based at the airport doesn't always necessarily reflect operations at the airport. So I wanted to make sure that that was pretty clear throughout this, because really, when you think about the amount of activity that takes place at the airport in terms of the training operations and takeoff and landings, that's significant. Those 100 based aircraft at the airport aren't, those numbers aren't reflected in that. So, and I know that, all of this data is in the master plan, but when you think about what this represents to the city comprehensive plan, how do you get some of that important data out of the master plan into the comprehensive plan? Yes, it's referenced in the comprehensive plan, but we don't expect someone who's just going to thumb through the comprehensive plan to be spending time looking at the master plan. So that's kind of how we worked that into it. C, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I had a
Oh yes, Charles, sorry.
the final sentence under previously A, the airport master plan was adopted by Common Council on April second. The actual final sentence. The full plan and process can be found on the city's airport master. I assume we meant plan and period there.
So you're reading A still?
I'm reading what was previously A.
Oh, okay.
Last sentence. The full plan and process can be found on the city's airport master, and then it cuts off in the draft.
Oh, Management plans to ensure that compliance with all regulations use the master plan as a guide for development. The master plan was adopted by the Common Council on April 19th. The full planning process can be found on the city. Yeah. Don't know what I did there. We'll fix that. I think it's just acknowledging where it is. All right, we'll fix that. Got it. Thank you. Don't know what I did. And B, again, the titles there, just trying to integrate what we have, make sure the history's represented. C, we talk a lot of, we C obviously is protecting the airspace. I think it's important to make sure that we have some way in that statement. Not are we only going to protect it, but we're going to try to, again, look forward to the future of always making sure that it is protected. D, obviously update it to what's going on currently with unleaded fuel. That's probably literally going to change month by month, but trying to reflect that in there. And that's kind of where we're at. I think the thing is, Brian, where do we want to go at this point?
So if the commission feels like they've got the changes in that they need, you can make a motion to have it referred to other committees as necessary for additional consideration. I'll have to check with the planning director on what the timeline is for any other additional updates to the comp plan, but that would be reviewed probably by the planning commission at the time they're ready to make some changes here in the next year or so.
Yep. Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, and other commissioners, how much distinction do you guys put between point A? In my mind, there's two business aspects of support amongst the airport. There's supporting the aviation needs of the local business community, and then there's the actual business of aviation that occurs at the airport. I think we're mixing those two, in my opinion. And I think they're both important. I'm not sure how much we hear necessarily from the general business community about, hey, I wish this was at the airport, or I wish I could do that through the airport, or other features or amenities that might be usable by the general business community who aren't training or repairing aircraft or doing things, selling aircraft. They're actually utilizing the airport as a business travel resource.
Would it be breaking the language up somehow?
That's how I saw it. I think there are two distinct business purposes that are potentially being served.
Certainly. I can certainly just do some wordsmithing along those lines. Brian and I can just take a look at it. Happy to we have that here as comments. Could I wordsmith something and just, I don't know, if we have Jack look at it, then really we can't adopt it as the way it is tonight, or we could just do it based on your input. We'll make some updates and still send it through if you're comfortable with that.
I'm comfortable with that. I think it's all under the general topic. I like the distinct topics. I mean, you have the purpose of business development, whether that's the business community or the business of aviation that occurs at the airport. Yeah,
Yep.
adherence to the federal requirements and master plan.
So we say one sentence basically would say, basically, what is an aircraft being self-immediate for hangar development, support aviation businesses. So really what we would say is, trying to think how we would word that, just break it up to say, one is to support business at the airport, period. The other is to promote and support the aviation industry. We'll think on it. I'll figure it out. I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I was just saying that the airports function as a business development or a tool by local businesses. Resource, maybe a better one.
Got it. I can go back through and actually look at this YouTube clip. I don't have to write it down. I had my head down. Who had their hand up first, Charles or Cara? Charles did. Go ahead, Charles.
Just to build off of Jack's point and touch on something that I raised during the reports section, I'd like to see in our comprehensive plan for the airport a commitment to creating an outward-facing communication strategy to make the public aware of all of the good things that the airport does in the community. I think that one of the barriers that it bumps into from my conversations with neighbors is that we all live close to the airport, and most of us really don't know very much about all of the wonderful things that go on there, that it's an open community space for scout troops, that there are charitable events that happen there, and the exact role that it plays in training the next generation of pilots. So I want a section in the comprehensive plan about developing and implementing an outward-facing communication strategy for the airport.
Gotcha. Information. City should basically use its communication tools to disseminate information about the airport.
Yeah, but it's not just disseminating the information. It's, really, and I used to do this
Promote.
professionally. It's developing a communication plan to put forward everything that the airport is doing. I think that would be really beneficial for the airport as a city entity and as a business.
Gotcha.
I couldn't agree more.
All right. All righty. Commissioner Randall.
Wow. Yeah. To both Jack and Charles. Charles, thank you. I see also that this has been a kind of a deficit, and people knowing really the benefit of all the level of benefit of the airport in the community. And to Jack's point, I was thinking, under for that section D, that it really is a tool of the economy, like how this supports businesses that may not even be in the city of Middleton, but use this. And there's just a lot there that it warrants its own distinction for its role in the business community, but also how it supports, can support businesses on the airport or businesses which use the airport. Like, that's fabulous. And even in the outward facing communications, I like how you say that. Even there's that aspect of how this is really an integral part of not only our own infrastructure in the city of Middleton, but also critically in Dane County, and also for the state as part of the broader picture. And then on the social level, the social and training, like STEM programs, there's a lot of ways that we could embellish that so people are educated, and then if they hear things that are misinformation or disinformation, that they have a counter to that, where we're repetitively really educating people about the myriad of beneficial things that are going on at the airport, and the opportunities, like Rich has made available the conference room for organizations. And that's fantastic. I mean, this opens up a whole nother discussion where, Charles, maybe tapping you and your expertise may really help to provide the service for the airport and our community. I know I digressed, but I was very impassioned by that.
That's fine. Absolutely. Yeah, I think can absolutely integrate some more language into this. If you're comfortable with me working on that, I will. Otherwise, certainly happy to bring it back to this body in June. Brian, how are we doing on time, do you think?
To bring this to back for another round, we have time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to do that. I would rather have you take a pass at it one more time, if you're okay with that. Why don't we do that? I'd feel more comfortable going back through this meeting, to the notes, doing some rewrite work, and then having you take a look at it one more time in June. Okay. So we will not take any action tonight. We will take notes. Appreciate that. And also, please just reach out to me directly, commissioners, individually. If you take a pass at this, and you know what, Dave, I have some ideas for the language here, just send it to me, and it'll make my life easier, and I'll just get it integrated and worked into it. Again, thanking Commissioner Schwartz for really helping me get this first draft out there, because he put time into this, and it was just so helpful. So thank you. Okay, on to item number 4. This is for information only. Brian, why don't you start out with an update on the ATC transmission replacement project?
Yeah, so I included in the packet the information that we had received from a consultant working for ATC on some monopoles that they're looking to replace. I don't have any additional information in terms of the heights, because that's obviously where we'd be concerned, given the building height limitations around the airport. So just more to put on your radar, and as we get more information from ATC, we'll let you know. I think our zoning administrator has already provided them with a copy of the building height ordinance as it's currently written today. And we provided the previous minutes from the zoning board of adjustment from back in 2011, where they last replaced some poles with the variant. So just more for your radar, and as I get more information, I'll keep you in the loop.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 5, our standing agenda item regarding, I guess, the state of unleaded and leadedness. And I keep track of things, summarizing a little bit of what I've read out there and where we're at. my opening statement would be at our Bureau of Aeronautics meeting this month. Brian asked the BOA outright, so what do you know? What's going on in the world of UL? And they simply said to him, you know as much as we do. I said, okay. And that was it. There was no other discussion, just finished. But, very much related to UL, and, a mission for obviously finding alternative energy sources at the airport. We also asked about, EV development and EV space. And because that was something and we'll talk about this in financials when we get to item number 6 a little bit. What is the future and what can we think about doing at the airport? And what they basically said was, yes, there are people out there who are absolutely looking at EV and EV development infrastructure at airports. Oshkosh has an ongoing project. They're looking at putting in and want to put in a vertiport. The technical stumbling block that they encountered was, I guess you really have to have a supercharger, high class, class 3 charger at an airport. Anything other than that is an ultra high voltage charger, will not do in aviation. And it makes sense because of the turnaround time that's required in an electric aircraft. So it's just something that we have to think about as we move forward with looking at this infrastructure. Sure, we could put a class 2 charger at our airport right now. Maybe we need to replace a mower or some other smaller piece of equipment that is electric, we could get away with class 2. But if we're really looking at the way the BOA sees it in terms of spending their money on an EV infrastructure project, I think it would really be 2 different types of asks. We wouldn't put in class 2 equipment to think we're going to support aviation. Class 2 equipment would be to simply shift from diesel and gas powered, say, mowing equipment to electric mowing equipment or something like that. So it would be kind of 2 different tracks. Saw that the manufacturer of tetraethyl lead is thinking that, well, they may cease production of it in 2030 if that's the direction everything is going, but they don't intend to do it soon. It looks like in the world of 100 unleaded, Swift continues to be moving ahead and working quite closely with almost more of an ASTM route to some degree. So we'll see. Just don't know what's going to happen there. Because they already make UL 94, they probably have more infrastructure in place than other people. And infrastructure is a relative term. If you were to think about our area here, South Central Wisconsin, there's 2 fixed outlets of unleaded 94, I believe, Broadhead and Suck. That's it. And Rich, what, a truck carries 8,000 gallons of fuel, roughly?
8,500 typically for 100 low lead.
Yeah. So for a truck to come from Indiana to central Wisconsin means that all the outlets that want this fuel would have to have empty tanks to make that one pass economically feasible. Otherwise, they're just not going to do it. So we have infrastructure issues that still are a great challenge. So I think that's about it. That's all I had for a UL update. Commissioners, do you know anything I don't know? read anything out there? Anybody really? You're not as interested in reading the Eagle page, keeping up with AvWeb. Okay. All right, well, on to financials then. Brian, if you'll please bring that up, and then Brian, I would like you at this point, if you would please provide us with, let's start with an overview and then talk about where, what came out of the BOA meeting.
Yep. So what's on the screen is just the monthly financials. Again, pretty straightforward. Again, we don't have a lot of, ups or downs in our financials. There is sometimes information that comes in just at the tail end of the month, so it'll be reported in next month's report. But no indications from the finance department that there's anything different than any other month as it relates to that. Also in your packet, I included kind of the long-term capital plan from the BOA. That's inclusive of our petition requests that we've done in the past and some of the other federal funding. So that's in your packet material just for your reference. But as you'll note, the two projects that we're looking at for 2025 is the design work for the rehabilitation of the taxiway. And then the drainage study are kind of the two first key ones. And if there's time and resources available, starting the design for the reconstruction of the full east-west runway. And again, it's just design for construction in the same dimensions that it is presently. And then there's some other projects in 26. The AWAS system that we've talked about before, that was part of our most recent BOA petition process. So that's included in there along with some replacement of gates for the airport. So that information in the packet kind of just gives you a rundown. So the more couple years out, then it's the actual construction work for some of those, the taxiway and the runway would be kind of in the out years of 27 and 28.
Yeah, and would we have a 2030 discussion at a future meeting, Brian? Or, I mean, it's just speculative at this point.
Yeah, it's just speculative at this point, and plus it's outside kind of the parameters of our typical CIP process. So when we get into the budget process for fiscal year 26, that CIP will be looking at years 2026 to 2030. So this, we'll call it the summer, late summer, early fall would be the right time for us to identify anything for the city that needs to be in that longer term capital plan radar, if you will.
Mhm. CIPs, yeah, capital improvement projects.
Capital improvement plan. Yep.
Yeah, and commission members, what I would encourage you to do is take a look at the master plan and go all the way down to section 6-1. So when the BOA asks us about where are you thinking about the future of these types of things, they're just looking at our master plan. That's it. If it's not on the master plan, it's not open for discussion. And so when you think about what do we want to do at the airport, and what do we want to ask for, and what do we want to put on their radar? I think what you'll see right at the top is the first priority A project. So, Brian, we would have a future discussion on that then?
Yep. So we, like I said, it probably, we'll say for our September meeting is probably when we'll get a sense of kind of, generally speaking, capital budget requests for the city globally. So that would be the right time for this committee to start thinking about what they would want to offer up to the city council to incorporate in the city's overall capital improvement plan. Again, would cover the years of fiscal year 26 to 2030. So yeah, September would be the time we'd start working on that.
Okay, great. All right. Well, that's all I had for item number 6. Do you have any future agenda items, commissioners? Anything that you that hasn't been already mentioned during this meeting that will come back to our next meeting, but anything else you'd like to see?
And just a note for the group, typically once a year, we kind of have one meeting in person and hybrid. It's kind of our organizational meeting. So we'll have the committee appointment process finished at the next council meeting. So when we meet again in June, we'll do that meeting as an in-person meeting. If you're available to attend in person, that's great. We'll also have a hybrid Zoom option for those that need to Zoom in for that. But that way you can meet each other face to face. And then we likely will not meet in July because that meeting falls, I believe, on the 4th. So we'll meet in June, but we will not meet in July.
And if anything really actually came up from a city perspective that requires immediate action from this commission, we can always hold a special meeting. And that does happen every once in a while with other committees and commissions in the city where we just have to do that. So you would be notified. Well, everybody, I want to thank you again for your time this evening. Welcome our Alder Charles Myers, and looking forward to seeing everybody in person in June. And with that, we stand